Great. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Christina House, and I'm the founder of Passages Center for Self-Directed Learning in Toronto, Canada. We're a self-directed learning center for young people, and we work to help them make a life for themselves outside of the conventional school system. We support their interests and passions, connect them with resources and opportunities, and most importantly, work with them to create community. Passages is a member of a larger organization, the Liberated Learners, many who are here tonight. Liberated Learners is an international organization with member centers in the US, Canada, Philippines, and Australia. Our member centers share a similar vision, giving kids options in their education. And together we're all hosting tonight's event. Making the choice to do something out of the box can be difficult, and the young people that you'll hear from tonight are all living this unique life experience. They're embracing a self-directed education and taking the reins of their life. Tonight, they'll be sharing their experiences leading up to joining their centers, what a week looks like, and where they'll be heading in the future. The 4 learners are from 4 different self-directed learning centers who are all a part of the Liberated Learners. We have Claire from Passages Center for Self-Directed Learning, Liel from Raritan Learning Cooperative, Alyssa from Princeton Learning Cooperative, and Declan from Embark Center for Self-Directed Education. Tonight, Claire is going to lead the evening's discussion and move through the questions that the 4 of them have decided upon, and then we'll go into a Q&A. The Q&A will just be on chat function, so you can put your questions in the chat. During the event, feel free to use emojis to share your support as the learners are speaking tonight. So now, passing it on to you, Claire.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the thing. I forgot what it was called. Let's get started. So the first question that we have is, what was your educational journey before you joined your center? I think I will start that one off because I'm already talking, and so it'll just be easier, I guess. I have had it's been interesting, but also pretty like straightforward. So I was in kindergarten and grade 1 in a public school, and that didn't work very well for me. Just wasn't my vibe. Um, and so my mom took me out. She homeschooled me up until around grade 6, when I went to a public alternative school, which also did not work out very well for me. Not the greatest environment. Um, there's a lot of stuff that happened there that's not very self-directed learner-y or human rightsy. um Anyways, but and then I went back to homeschooling because the pandemic hit and everything kind of shut down, so I went back to homeschooling. And then I found Passages, and here I am. It's been like 3 years, 2 years, but yeah, 2 or 3. But yeah, that's been my kind of journey with things. Liel, would you like to go next?
Sure, yeah. So my education journey before joining my center was kind of very traditional, in the sense that I was like always in public school or in private schools, always in a traditional schooling system. So, you had grades, state tests, what have you. And that was, I think in my particular case, where I'm coming from, I used to live in New York City, and the schooling system there is quite competitive. So, like in 4th grade, you're taking state tests to apply to middle school, and there's a lot of competition and tension, like in your local elementary school community around that. So, at the end of 5th grade, like if you got into one middle school, or like if you didn't get into one middle school and somebody else did, there was like a tension between your friendships. So that was pretty difficult to navigate because, we were like 10, 11 years old. And the same thing kind of happened in high school. So like you had your state tests in 7th grade, and your grades that would count for high school, and then you would apply to high school. And then there were like the ones considered the good ones and the ones considered maybe the less desirable high schools. And again, there was a tension around that, a competition around that. And I think for some other kids, it didn't really, they were able to kind of detach the value of their grades to their self-value. And in my case, for whatever reason, I was not able to separate the two. And that's really where I struggled, because it was a personal offense if I didn't get a good grade. It was reflecting something poor about myself, at least in my own mind. So that was my public school experience. And I think it definitely depends on the kid. For me personally, that's how I responded to it. So that was my education journey before joining my center.
All right. Yeah. I'm sorry. Public school can be really interesting sometimes. It can be a lot. Yeah. Alyssa, you want to go next?
Sure. Let's see. I've been homeschooled most of my life. I was in public school for kindergarten and first grade, but I ended up leaving after that because of a couple of bullying issues and like some staff not like really handling it, and I just didn't like the way that it worked. I homeschooled for a really long time, with the exception of like a co-op that I went to once a week. And then once COVID hit, a lot of stuff shut down, including my dance classes that I took and like the co-op that I went to. So obviously, as everyone else was, I was stuck inside, really bored, lost all like social interaction, and that sucked. So once everything started opening back up, I quit dance, and so I stopped going there. So I lost that like outlet, and a friend had recently joined PLC and he was telling me about it. And I was like, well, I need something to do. Leaving dance kind of sucked. I need to talk to more people. I need to get out more. I need to do more stuff like that. So I talked to my parents, and then I have been in PLC for this is my second year now. So
It's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Declan, I see your camera's off. I'm not sure if you're still.
Yeah, sorry, I'm here. I just my internet connection wasn't stable, so I shut it off for a minute.
Oh, no,
Okay.
that's totally fine.
Okay, so I started off in elementary school for my entire life until COVID. I started homeschooling for a while. Then we moved to world schooling, which was super cool. I got to go to so many places. I visited like 23 countries or something like that. And yeah, it's been really cool. Then we came back from where we first discovered agile learning in Portugal, and so we were like, well, we want that for here. So we found Embark Center, and I go there now twice a week. And today was my last day there for the semester. That was pretty sad, but yeah. So now I'm on my summer break for it.
Aw. Well, that's so sad that it's your last day.
I know, yeah. It was a fun last day though.
That's good. That's good. At least it was a good time.
Yeah.
But you're going back next year, right?
I think so, yes. I'll probably not be back for a little bit longer than most people because I'm going to Honduras, we think.
Dude, that's so cool.
Yeah, my dad is thinking about trying to get deployment there. He's a military
Oh,
worker. Yeah, okay. That's it for me.
All right. Okay, that moves us on to sorry. Thank you for your answers, everybody. um, this moves us on to our second question, which is, how was your transition into being a self-directed learner or your transition into a learning center? Alyssa, do you want to go?
sure. Let's see. So my transition, because I was at home for a majority of the time, with the exception like a day or two. It wasn't that bad. It was relatively easy. The biggest issue for me was my sleep schedule, because I'm not a morning person. I prefer staying up late, getting up relatively later in the afternoon. I had that schedule for a really long time, so for the first like month or so like that, I lost a lot of sleep, and even now I still struggle sometimes. So I'll fall into like old habits or whatever you want to call that. So the transition was pretty nice for me. It was mostly positive because I was happy to like be getting out of the house, trying new things, talking to new people. Obviously, I had a couple of friends in it, so I was already pretty socialized, going directly into it. So all of that was pretty easy. It's just the most difficult parts for me was sleep schedule and then commute because I live like 45 minutes away from my center, so that's a long drive. But everything managed to work out after like a month of a lot of trial and error, a lot of test runs, a lot of conversations between me and my parents. I got there eventually. It was a bit of a jump.
Yeah, that makes sense. Everything takes time for adjustment. Awesome. Okay. Declan, you want to go next?
Sure. So my transition was pretty easy. I've always had sleep problems, so I've been taking melatonin for the past couple of years. And if I was too tired or like I forgot my melatonin or something, then I can just like take a nap if I really need to at my center. So yeah, it was pretty easy for me. I met a lot of friends pretty quick, and I got into almost every class on the days that I went, and they were all really fun. And yeah, so it was pretty easy.
That's great. That's awesome. All right. Liel.
Okay. So I feel like kind of the timeline of my transition was kind of similar to Alyssa's in the sense that it took like a month to kind of settle into the flow of things. So I started this past September at my learning cooperative, and it's my first year homeschooling, so it felt like a big jump. I think what I struggled with most was, or a few of the things that I kind of had to overcome to settle into the flow of self-directed learning was number one, I had this huge fear around becoming homeschooled because I thought I couldn't meet any of the requirements that would be necessary to go to college if that was something that I saw in my future. And I remember actually my mentor is Allison, so I was talking to her about it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, will I be able to get into college? Can I meet all of my high school requirements?" And I was really genuinely scared that like somehow I wouldn't be able to move on into higher education if I became a homeschooler. And I asked all those questions, and of course, like the answer was, of course I could go to college. Of course I can meet my high school requirements. You would just have to kind of like your shape your curriculum based on what your goals are. So if you want to leave that option open, you'll set up your schedule and your classes in a certain way so you're able to do that. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So that was kind of one thing that helped me calm down and settle in. I think another thing was just I had this idea that all homeschoolers like were always alone, like at home, not really with anyone else. I'm a first year homeschooler, you guys. I had a lot of ideas in my head about this stuff. So forgive me for stereotyping. um, and I so I was afraid that I also wouldn't have as much of a social aspect to my schooling. And I think what's really nice about a learning cooperative is that you're still with like a group of kids your age. So I was still able to make friends and like have a social experience even as a homeschooler. And I think that also was like, okay, I can kind of still really like be a teenager even as like I'm self-directing my education. And that there's also like a lot of support, and that was really kind of comforting, that there was still that aspect to my learning education, like my learning experience and education. And I think the last thing was not having grades. That to me was really, really hard to let go of because I had gotten so used to that type of schooling, and I had also kind of gotten good at it because like I knew how to work with it. Because I was like, oh yeah, I can do the work and I can get the grade, and like I know how all of this works. And becoming self-directed was like, oh, you learn for the sake of learning. So and you're self-evaluating also. So like, what does it mean to you to be an A+ student? Like what is your standard for what you want to learn throughout the year? And like, so I think that was also like a total kind of mental, like a different, like, I guess a paradigm shift, like to kind of open my mind to that and be like, oh, I don't necessarily, I can learn for the sake of learning, not learn for the sake of a grade. And I think that was a very difficult and also a very healthy change for me. So that was my transition.
Well, that's good. I mean, speaking as a homeschooler for many years, I can tell you I was not lonely and alone all the time. Though I have gotten that question many, many times. Aren't you alone? Hmm. By choice, by choice. um, but yeah, that's great. Transitions are hard. It's rough. But yeah. I guess it's my turn now. Um, I didn't find my transition too difficult because I'd been homeschooling for so long. So it kind of like the transition into like a self-directed environment wasn't very hard for me because I'd already been operating that way and kind of going about those like going about living that way for a really really long time, so it wasn't anything new to me. I think the thing that was the hardest for me during my transition was like motivation and like getting up to go there because not only was the pandemic just happening and just finished, but I am somebody with chronic pain and mental health issues. So it can be really exhausting to get up and go somewhere every single day. And so, kind of getting into that routine and like even allowing myself breaks when I needed them was really hard for me to adjust to. But I eventually got there. It was just a rough little bit of adjustments, but yeah. So that's it for that question. The next question is, what is a typical week like? I will start with Alyssa, since you've not
Wow,
been
two in a
first.
row. Okay, I see how it is. You're putting me on the spot. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, typical week is hard to explain. It's changes a lot. Um, Everyone's is different because obviously people take different classes. We have like a million a day. It just depends on which ones you want to be taking that day. Mine always tend to start like really, really fast, really busy, and end like super slow pace. Because my most busy day is without a doubt Monday. I have something like every hour that day. And then by the time you get to Thursday, I have like two classes and they're quick, they're short, they're easy, they're really laid back and slow. So it's a bit weird. It's definitely a weird adjustment to get used to. I struggled a lot when I first joined because I didn't know what was happening what day. I didn't know what to prepare for. I didn't know what to expect every single day. But it's actually it's a lot of fun once you really get used to it because then you're looking forward. You have your favorite days, and then you have your least favorite days, and then you have stuff like Fridays, which is my center takes trips every Fridays, and they're always like member led, and you can go like we've taken like beach trips. We went down to Asbury Park. We went to Six Flags. We went like hiking. We went to a bunch of different places. So it just kind of it varies a lot. Like the pacing changes a lot between Monday and Thursday, and then Friday's kind of like a reprieve that you can just hang out with your friends and enjoy and do what you please.
Yeah, that's really cool. You guys went to Six Flags?
Yeah, actually, I didn't. The worst part, I'm still really upset about this. I didn't go on that trip, and
No.
so, but we haven't planned one since.
All right. Fair.
So,
That's really cool though. All right. Declan.
Um, well, the week usually starts with a typical week for me is starts on Monday, like most people's. Um, I don't really do much on Monday, but I used to have climbing that I would go to every night. So I went rock climbing every night on Mondays, and yeah, I was on the rock climbing team. And So now I like sometimes I will like study mythology on Mondays and stuff like that. But then on Tuesdays I go to Embark and I do cooking. I do lots and lots of cooking every week that I can. And cooking brings me a lot of genuine joy. It's very calming for me, and I met some nice people doing cooking. And on Wednesdays I have mythology and D&D. D&D usually stretches for a few hours. We get really into it. And then I do mythology before that. And I really like mythology. And so, yeah, that's a Wednesday. And then on Thursday, I had a geography class that I did. And we had a bunch of projects we had to do for that. And we would study and make map or like locate places on maps and like draw where they are. And we would then on Friday I still have a climbing class where it's not specifically for the climbing team, but it is just a class, and I go every Friday. And then I have Saturdays and Sundays where I don't do too much, like most people. Those are the only days I can play video games, so I do a lot of that. And yeah, that's what a week looks like for me.
That's cool. I tried D&D once. I wasn't a fan, but I know so many people get like so into it, and it always
Oh,
seems so
that
cool.
that room is always just laughing and screaming.
That makes a lot of sense. That is how most of the people who I know that play D&D act, and they're always
Yeah.
a fun people. They're a fun group of people to hang out with.
Yeah.
All right, Liel, why don't you go next?
Yes, I will do that. Also, I just want to add, we have a bread baking class at our learning cooperative, and this past Tuesday was our last class, and one of the members made a one of the D&D characters out of bread. It was really awesome. Okay, I digress. Anyway, so my my typical week is also kind of variable. In my first semester, like up until mid-January, I had a pretty full schedule. My Mondays, I wrote my schedule down so I could kind of talk about it. Mondays I had a few academic classes. So I had like my math class, like this year I'm doing algebra 2. And I had oh, I started ASL this year, which is super cool. That was a class there were a lot of options. There was like data and stats and history. There was a theater class. There was a painting class, which was super fun. And then I won't go too much into like each of the particular classes. I think one of the most significant classes this year for me though was I took a course at a community college. And it was a biology-based course, and it was called Plants, Humans, and the Environment. And it was kind of all about how people and kind of our practices, whether that's agricultural or just consumer practices, like buying fast food, or like wood products, how those all impact the environment. So that was super interesting. And because our schedules are flexible, I like spent half the day there at the community college, and then I would join for the second half of the learning day on Wednesdays. And at our learning center, we have Wednesdays off. So this course had like a lecture and a lab, and the lab was on Wednesdays. So that worked out perfectly. So we have Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday as learning days. And then Fridays are also trip days, just like Alyssa said, because our cooperatives are like sister ones. And I think like my schedule is like a combination of both like academic classes just to like hit all of the requirements that were necessary. Like if I wanted to continue to college, just to leave that option open. And plus like fun or like life skill classes. So there was like bread baking, there was homesteading, there was a fun class called non-required reading where we kind of just got to read like more contemporary literature, which was super fun. Yeah. And then Fridays, I think one of my highlights of Fridays was house band, because we got to play music as a band, for anyone who wanted to join in the cooperative. And I think also like there's a lot of schedule flexibility. So for example, I just started a job. So on Tuesdays, I leave slightly early so I can make it there. And it's an agricultural one at a community supported agriculture farm. So, and that's part of my interest, organic, and they do organically based agriculture, which is one of my interests. So it's really cool that kind of that gets to be supported by the flexible schedule. Yeah, I think that's most of my typical week.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. I, similar to you, kind of have like a, it's interesting because I'm working a lot. So for my typical week, like this is my last year at Passages, which I'm really sad about. Um, because I love it there and it's so lovely and all the people are so great. Um, but this is my last year because I'm in grade 12 technically. Um, so I don't go many days a week. I used to, up until around April of this year, I was going pretty consistently, at least twice to three times a week, I would say. Um, and then in April, I turned 18 and I was able to begin volunteering at a preschool for kids with disabilities. And so I've kind of shifted um, from going to Passages every single day to 3 days a week being at this preschool with these kids and getting a lot of hands-on experience and um, learning how to interact and working closely with trained professionals, as it is an area of interest of mine, is like working with kids and like mental health and neurological everything. The brain is so cool. um but yeah, so I don't really go as much. I try to go Wednesdays though, but not this Wednesday. I did not go today. I was very tired. um I try to go Wednesdays. I'm currently in the process of finishing up my English grade 12 credit for university. So I also spend a lot of time working on that, whether it's at Passages or at some random coffee shop somewhere at home, anywhere, honestly. But a typical week for me is kind of varied. It depends on like what I do when I go to the center, if I do, because I'm really like, I'm slowly transitioning out of being there every day into kind of um, living my life, like living my own life and like transitioning into like the working world and like what it will be like when I'm off on my own, getting my higher education. So it's kind of interesting. It's nice to have a place to go where I'll get the support that I need while I can still go off and do the things that I love. Yeah. Okay. This brings us to our very last question, at least the ones that we decided on. And this last question is what are the next what are the next steps in your education? And Declan, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So I'm only 12, so I have not put a lot of thought into what I'm gonna do for like high school and college even. But I have thought about it a little, and I've decided that, or not decided. I've had more thoughts than I did when I started homeschooling, which was I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna go to high school, I'm gonna go back to high school, I'm gonna go to college, and but I've actually been thinking about going to like a culinary school and becoming a chef because I really like cooking and it's so fun. So yeah, that's most of the thought that I've really put into my the next steps for my education. But it was a hard decision, or it was a hard thing to think about. But yeah,
Yeah, that's fair. You're still younger. Like you're not young, but you're younger. So you've got time to think about those kinds of things, which is nice. And that's a nice thing that like self-directed learning and like homeschooling gives you is like time.
yeah,
You're not really pressured
yeah,
right off the bat to think about that stuff because really you don't need to know it at 12.
yeah. No,
You've got a lot of time.
yeah.
um Liel, do you want to go next?
Or yeah. So I think currently, I mean, okay. So next steps for my education. Currently, I'm just making a list of colleges that I might want to apply to. That's kind of where I'm at. Um, since I'm, I guess, like grade 11. So, like next fall would be my typical application time. Um, so that's kind of what I'm looking at. I also think like I want to just continue to explore my interests next year and kind of still like still kind of get a broad view of all my academic requirements and continue to kind of just work on my skills in each of those just to have them kind of in like my toolkit just in case like any profession that I choose to go into, I have that as a baseline. I also think for my next steps in education, a lot of it is kind of geared currently towards like organic and sustainable agriculture. So I want to continue looking into that, taking classes related to it, because that's really where my focus is currently. And so that's like why I got a particular job, like looked for a particular job like that. And I'm currently working at that. And that job goes into the fall. So that'll, I started on Tuesday. Yes, yesterday was my first day. So that's just beginning. So that's definitely like for the next 6 months going to be like a lot of learning. And I think also just really continuing to explore my interests, looking at schools that might have more like different subjects that cater towards my interests. And also, I think next year, really kind of taking the time to, I mean, taking the time to really learn for the sake of learning and continue to do that as a practice and as something that I like choose consciously just because it's the right thing to do to continue to work on the discipline and motivation and completing something at a certain time just for the sake of integrity, for the sake of like building up like academic integrity, the joy of learning, and really learning through that lens. Because that's kind of what's helped me grow so much this year. And I just want to continue doing that and continue to choose that and continue to enjoy other people around me doing that. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. That sounds like a good next step. That's a nice outline for the next year. Alyssa, do you want to go now?
Sure. So my next steps feel a bit like hard to explain because I'm leaving my freshman year like right now, like next week, I think. So which I believe is grade 9. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So I obviously I still got a couple more years of high school until I go off to college or if I leave my center. At the current time being, it happened just last year actually because I took a law class at my center and I realized how much I was into law and I realized how passionate I was about becoming a lawyer. So that's currently my goal. I want to become a relationship lawyer, which is stuff like helping people with abuse cases or like adoption or divorce or stuff like that. So I've been looking into stuff like that. It's all been pretty slow because again, trying not to rush it. But and of course, I'm not sure if I'm 100% sure in becoming a relationship lawyer, but I like a lot of stuff involving law. I think it's going to be somewhere involving law, just maybe not that field. That might change. But it's essentially just right now I'm currently just kind of making more friends, talking to more people in my center, trying to like me and a couple other people because I'm an ambassador at PLC, and so just kind of trying to get our name out there, talk to more people, try and make the space as inviting as possible, take classes that I like, try and focus on making sure that I'm happy in my education right now. And then as time goes on, I'm slowly but surely looking into like colleges, law schools, stuff like that that I like, and just all that stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. You've also got time. Like this is the thing. There's unlimited amounts of time. Um, for myself, um, I am actually I know what my next steps are. I don't know why I'm hesitating. Next year, I am heading off to university to get my bachelor's of social work, so that I can hopefully go into some kind of field similar to what Alyssa was saying. I want to go into some kind of relationships therapy and something like that within the social work realm and try to help people with things relating to, their relationships and their interactions with people and the yeah. Uh, um yeah. Um but yeah, so that's my next step. There's not really too much to it. I'm just kind of heading off to university, but I'm excited. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really good time. I am excited to further my education and kind of explore more of my interests and really like narrow down what I want to do specifically because I just have a broad idea now. It's not really like a specific like I want to do this specific kind of thing. It's just kind of like social work. um so it'll be nice to, be in a space that helps me learn more about that. But yeah, that's my next step. And that is the end of our questions. Um, and now I believe it's time for the Q&A.
Yeah, we can go to the Q&A. Claire, did you want me to read the questions for the Q&A, or are you okay to keep going?
I don't really mind either way. I can read the questions out if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay. So there's the first question was from Mary Beth, and this one was for me because it says question for Claire. Um, how was it applying to college? How was the experience applying to college and university? Um, it was interesting to say the least. I did not expect to be going this year. I thought that I would have to take an extra year to complete some more grade 12 courses. Um, that was my expectation, and I went into this year like believing that I would spend another year at home, like take a gap year. But I thought, why not apply? Like, what's the harm? There's literally the worst they can do is say no, and then I do what I was planning already to do. So I applied, and I ended up getting in, which was really exciting and really amazing, and also kind of nerve wracking because I've never really had that experience of being like, because I was never in like a typical high school, so I never really had that experience of being like having like something looked at and then being like graded for it and stuff like that. Because they're like looking at your your like transcript and they're being like, do we want her here? I've never had that experience before, so it was really interesting and kind of nerve wracking to know like that's what was going on and be like, oh my god, can I do this? Um, but overall, it was a positive experience. Yeah, and I am excited. So that's my take on that one. The next question wasn't directed at anybody, so I guess anyone can answer it. It's from Emily, and they said, "What is your favorite thing about being a self-directed learner?" anyone have an answer? Maybe Liel, you got anything? Oh, or Declan does.
I'll
Oh,
go.
sorry, Liel.
I'm sorry, Leo. My favorite thing about being a self-directed learner was definitely meeting all the people.
Yeah, that's
Met
awesome.
people, and they were all super nice.
Yeah, that's really, really great. I cut you off, Liel. I don't know if you were going to say anything. Here's your chance.
Yeah, I'll add something.
Okay.
I think I'll add on to Declan about like meeting people and also just meeting them kind of where they're at, not like having that environment of grades. It's just like you're meeting people as people. And I thought that was awesome because you kind of just get to appreciate them from who they are without kind of this like idea of like, huh, like how good are you at such and such and like, you know? So that was helpful. Plus the flexibility. Like it's so awesome to kind of be able to shape your schedule and like you don't necessarily have to know like what you want to go into. Once you do though, you can shape your schedule around it. And that's so awesome because I mean, I got to focus on things that I would have never had the time for otherwise. So I think that was like the highlight for me for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Alyssa, do you have anything?
Yeah. My favorite thing about all this would actually probably be the opportunity that I've gotten and how much that I've like been exposed to now. All different people that that I've met, and actually, in PLC right now, I got to talk to someone that I knew, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and then lost all contact with, and now we go to the same center together and we hang out every single day. So that has been great, and also I wanted to be a doctor before I went into PLC, and then I joined PLC and I realized how passionate I was about becoming a lawyer. So I think that's just something I'm really appreciative for my LC and just kind of everything that I've done because I wouldn't have ever even considered that career path unless it weren't for the criminal justice class that I took in PLC. So because of that, I've just kind of I feel like it's made a lot more fall into place in my life.
That's really, really great. Yeah, I kind of feel like for me, it's I'm really enjoy the freedom of being a self-directed learner and like being able to choose what works best for you and like learn about the things you're passionate about instead of being told, hey, learn calculus. Because definitely not something I'm passionate about because I did not learn it. Um, so going on to the next question, we have a question from Corinne, and they said, "What are some of the best ways your parents have supported your self-directed educational journey? Have they done anything you wish they hadn't?" Anyone?
I don't think my parents were super supportive of it. Um, first of all, by paying for it. But then also yeah, no, I don't think I wish that they had done everything that they did. They did everything, I think.
Yeah, that's always pretty great. That's how I feel. I think my parents made the right choice to homeschool me when they did and to keep me homeschooled for as long as they did and then giving me the freedom to try high school and hate it and leave. Um so I definitely think my parents were very very supportive of kind of my educational journey and like throughout all of that, which was a huge help because it's always great to have someone in your corner.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I can go. My It's interesting because my parents definitely neither of them were too keen on high school. They both kind of hated it, so they were very happy when they heard that I wanted to try something that wasn't exactly high school. Um, so they've been very supportive because it's a long drive they have to go to and they have to take me home, and I've appreciated the fact that they're willing to take so much time out of their day and do that for me every single day, like almost every single day of the week, and just the fact that they're so willing to take me to see my friends or like change plans if I need to for like an event that's happening there, or since I'm ambassador I'm included in a lot more events, so like I have to help set stuff up, I have to show up early, I have to like be there sometimes to help people plan for things and stuff like that. And they've just been so like easy going with that. They've been so accepting of all the plan changes that I've had to make on them, or if there's anything like that. And they've just been so, I guess they've been so flexible with how much all of our schedules had to change because of that. And honestly, if anything, I am happy with the way that they did everything because they didn't exactly, they told me if I really, really wanted to push, then I could go to a public setting. But they said, listen, we really want you to go to PLC, try this out, see what you think of it. And I'm just so happy that they did because I can't imagine my life without it right now.
That's so great. That's awesome. Liel, do you have anything?
I do. I'll add.
Sure.
So I'd say my also transport wise, like my dad has really like taken me everywhere I needed to go this entire year. He drove me to the community college and then he'd pick me up and then he'd drive me to the center and then he'd pick me up from the center. And it was just like he showed up for me so much this year and took me everywhere I needed to go. And I mean, I just like can't even thank him enough for like making it possible for me to even like physically get to those places. And then my mom, like we like worked our schedule so that like she would be able to take me before her work started, and then like she'd have a break in work when she'd come to pick me up and drop me off like back at home. And really transportation, they made it happen and that was amazing. And they also like they gave me a choice. Like ultimately it was up to me. And I think like it was a transition for all of us, like to get into self-directed education. They were always like as long as you're happy, like just do what makes you happy. And I think that was helpful. And it also like gave me an accountability. So I think that was something that was very supportive and also like it challenging in a good way.
Mhm. That's awesome. That's great. Yeah. I keep saying that's awesome. That's great, but I mean it. Like I, yeah. Another question from Corinne. And they said, is there any kind of person that you think self-directed education doesn't work for? Has there ever been a time when it wasn't working for you? I'll answer that first because I saw that question. I was like thinking about it. Um, I think self-directed learning could work for anybody. I think the issue with some people in self-directed learning is that it's hard. It's not an easy path to take. If you think of self-directed learning as like, oh, well, now I get to sit at home all day and watch TV. Cool. I don't have to go to school. It's going to be really hard for you. Like, that's going to be really, really difficult because you're not going to be doing anything. And then life's going to get hard and you're not going to be able to figure out what to do. Um, but if you see it as the opportunity that it is to grow and change as a person and like really delve deep into like the world and yourself, you learn so much about yourself from self-directed learning. Um, it can be like an incredible opportunity. So I think it can work for anyone. It's just whether or not if you want that kind of life and if you want to be actively working like that. Because if you go to school every day, they'll give you things to work on. But when you're a self-directed learner, you give yourself things to work on. And that can be the difficult part because not everyone wants to do that. Um, but I think it's worth it. Like in my personal opinion, it's always been worth it, even if it is harder and causes a little bit of distress occasionally. But that's just general stress. But yeah, that's my opinion on that.
Um, I was a little bit scared and confused about it at first when I first started because I didn't think that I was like, how do you get into high school? How do you get into college? Like how do you get your grade? How do people know to let you into their college? Stuff like that. But it definitely changed really quick. And everyone I've met has been content with the lifestyle of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Alyssa, Liel, anything?
I think you put everything into like exactly how I would want to word it. I think that's essentially, I think it can work for anyone. It's just a matter on how hard you want it to work. Because I think that it's just kind of one of those things where it's a bit more scary once you first go into it, because like there isn't really anyone to like quote unquote hold your hand or like kind of guide you through it. It's a lot more stuff that you have to rely on yourself to make it all work. You have to talk to people. I want to do this. I want to learn about this. I have to do this in order to do this thing in my next in the next part of my career. It's a lot of stuff that you have to set up yourself, and you have to be ready to look into, do the research for, and commit to yourself and hold yourself to. But if you are willing to do all that, I think it works amazing. Because in my first year at PLC, I slacked off in my classes a lot because I kind of had that same exact mentality of kind of like, oh well, I'm not being forced to go to my classes. I'm not being graded. Does it really matter if I'm at every single class or if I make it to every single class? But once I kind of realized, okay, I shouldn't be going to this class. I don't enjoy this class. It's not essential for this, that, or the other thing. I should try this class. I really like it. And the topic of this class sounds really interesting. And there are a bunch of classes that throughout this entire school, the entire past school year, once I joined and found out that I loved like it, the topic kept me always interested. There was never anything about it that maybe any type of like board or anything like that. I was consistent. I was at every single class. There was never an exception. There were sometimes that if I was late or if I just wasn't in for the day, I'd join online because we do that as well. And it's just kind of a matter where in the beginning of it, I didn't really know what to do or how to handle it or how things like that would work. But once I got into it, once I kind of realized that I was learning for myself and not necessarily for a system, I think that everything started going a lot more smoothly. I started getting a lot more comfortable with it. I found a good balance between my friends, my classes, and just kind of once I realized, okay, I have to take control of this, but I can do it in a way that makes me happy. I think that's kind of when the change happened.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I can understand that for sure. Leo, anything or just
Um, I'll add one thing. I think just like the one part where it says like, or has there ever been a time where it wasn't working for you? Like, I think the only time self-directed education wasn't working for me was when I was still in a traditional education mindset. Because then I was like, well, like things have to be like, I have to be told what I'm supposed to do. And I think like once it got through my head that I was like, no, you're initiating. It's like it's your choice. Then I was like, oh, so like if I want to complete this, like I can like I guess choose to like put like a bit of like a healthy pressure on myself to like get it done. So I think like it works, it like again, like what Alyssa was saying, like once you get in that mindset, then you see the change.
yeah, 100%. I think that I've heard a lot of people say similar things like that about self-directed education and like the public school and traditional education mindset. And it makes a lot of sense. It's like you've been told one thing your whole life, and then suddenly there's a world of possibilities. You're like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. Um, from where I can see, that is the end of the questions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we will wrap up. We're right on time, all of you. So prompt. Um, Amazing. Thank you so much, the four of you, for sharing your life, your education, ASL, hand clapping for you all. Um, yeah, so we'll be sending a follow-up email again to everyone who registered, and with the follow-up email, we'll include any educational resources related to self-directed education, and then as well as the recording from tonight. The next Liberated Learner event might be coming out soon. I'm not sure what's scheduled next, but you sign up for the newsletters and we will alert you when it's coming. Is there something booked, Allison, or is it summer?
Yeah, we don't have anything booked right at the moment, but check back. We will get something on the calendar soon.
Awesome. Yeah, and then starting in September becomes pretty regular events through Liberated Learning, which is really fun. I enjoy them all. So thank you for everyone coming tonight. It was, we felt your support through the screen. All right, thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.